Hello, everybody, and welcome to the House of Leaves live show. I am joined by Amber from Amber's Books and More, and Jessica Williamson, the creator of the Worldwide Write-a-thon.
Got it.
Never wants to say it.
It's a rough one. Why did I do that? That was a bad decision.
Don't know. It's hard. And also a ton of other bookish things. All the sprinting, all of the live shows, all of the organization. She's lovely. She's wonderful. And it's her first time here. She's already got the wrench of power. So,
This is true.
it works.
I love the wrench of power. It is my favorite thing to have.
I like that you have it, quite frankly. It makes me feel better about just knowing that I'm in good hands. You can kick people out if you need to.
I am known as the troll slayer on Kate Kavanaugh's streams because that's literally I can't even participate in the chat or the conversation. I literally just have to be there and just kick people out. That's my sole job.
We're usually pretty troll free over here.
Yeah,
relatively, unless it's Chelsea and I drinking, and then it's lots of the trolls.
Yeah, but that's fun.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
See who's here. It's going to be it's going to be a calmer live stream. There won't be as many people here as in my sprints or in other things that we do because not everybody has read this book and not everybody wants to be spoiled. But if you want to be spoiled about House of Leaves by Mark Z Danielewski, this lovely chunker of a book, then this is the place you want to be. Or if you don't want to be spoiled, but you've already read this book and you just want to discuss it with people because you've got thoughts and feelings and emotions, that's what we're here to do. So we're going to talk about that. And if you're wondering why we're live, why it has a strange title and thumbnail, that's why. So welcome. Chelsea. Chelsea's ready to be spoiled. She's not read it.
She got so sick last time, though. I get the superstition because you and Natasha both had high fever, hospitalization type sickness. So I get it.
It was a bad time. So I get it. But maybe, hopefully, when we talk about it, it will convince you that it's something exciting and that you want to do because I really like it. Yay, Christine. So I will say, first, happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yay for you. If you have intentions on still reading this book, it is, I don't know how to describe it. It's an immersive experience more than a regular traditional novel that you would read. It's different than a lot of other things. So I would say if you still have genuine interest in reading this as much as I want you here, it's up to you.
Here's the thing. Having gone through it, I didn't finish it the second time. But having gone through some of it the second time, knowing what happens, even if you're spoiled, I don't think it ruins the experience. I think it changes the experience.
That's true.
It's just because it was a different thing knowing this and then being I never saw that. I never noticed that. What does this mean? I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
I had something pointed out to me today in a comment. Well, I had them mention a comment on my vlog. And then I went to the page that they were referencing, didn't see the thing that they were talking about, but then noticed something completely different that the last 2 times I read it, I never even saw. So I was like, come on. So
it's definitely something where you're going to take something different from it every time. So even if you know the basic plot line, you're still going to pick up different things every time you read it. So being spoiled is still not as much fun, but
it's not like a regular novel where if you spoil it, it's never gonna be good. It'll still be good. It's just it'll be different.
Yeah, it's okay.
Spoilers don't bother me in general anyway, because do you never rewatch a movie?
Yeah,
I still enjoy it.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Alicia. Wrench of power. German trolls. The best trolls. What were they? They weren't whore hunters. They had a name. It was a German horde of trolls that had a name. Skank.
Did you say
Skank
whore
hunters.
or
they were skank.
horde?
No.
Skank.
Nope. we were on a German forum and they're like, these American drunk skanks are live streaming, go get them. And we literally could follow it back to the original thread and they were like, go get the skanks. And like everybody converged. It was skank hunters.
Oh my.
Skank hunters.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the German trolls in the show, but I didn't know that you had gone back and found them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Somebody went and researched while we were in the live stream and they're like, oh, you're on a German forum. Like they literally said, oh, American women drunk on the internet, go. Go.
If you're American and drunk, you're a skank, so can't
Skanks.
It's rolling.
I mean, I'm a skank, but not because I'm an American.
Not because of that.
There are other reasons.
So, Yay. I'm glad that you're here. Hopefully, I don't know if everybody has read. We can discuss that. Throw it out in the comments. Have you read? Have you not read? Do you not care? Are you just here to get spoiled? It's fine. We're good with it. Alicia, very happy that you read it, though. Hopefully,
if you have read it, tell us what you rated it.
Hi, Andy.
Oh,
yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Because I gave it a 4 the first time, I believe. And the second time, I would give it a 5 if I had finished it.
Yeah. If I had finished it.
If I had finished it. I mean, it was my first time reading it, so I have like settled at a 4. Because like there are things about it that I didn't like, but I feel like if I read it and got all of the context another time, I probably would like it more. So
yeah.
Same, Chelsea. So
yeah. I'm totally
just not because I'm an American.
No.
Right.
Ooh.
Why do I see eat tacos and talk about like wait
different thing?
A real taco. Got it.
All right. Haven't read. Super excited to read. Not bothered by spoilers. Good. All right, because we're gonna get into it. I'm giving y'all a little bit of time. You've been warned, so we're good. I watched your whole video. Okay, good. I didn't understand a damn thing. Listen, even if you had read it, you probably wouldn't have understood it even if you read it.
I'm sorry if you hear whining. I have 10 puppies in the other room and they are clear on the other side of the house, but somebody is being very vocal right now. So
no.
Yeah, there was nights when Julie, we would be on like a streamer, just me and her, and she'd be like, okay, like, listen, hear me out. What if this is what's happening? And I'm like, oh, and we're both like looking up stuff and we're just like, did you see this on this page? Maybe that means this something else. And we were like,
you do.
Like, wait.
It's the one book where if somebody's reading it like this in public, you don't walk by and flip it over like they're pretending to read.
Yeah, they're like sideways and. I don't blame you for struggling
with a mirror, being like,
oh my god. That first time that I read this book before I realized that all of the mirrored images were on the next page correct, and I sat there and decoded so many of them, and I'm like, oh, you giant idiot.
I know. Where is it? Let me find one.
I figured it out eventually.
Was literally like this. I was like, colored, fiber reinforced. Because it's a mirror.
And then it says nothing, and you're like, well, what did that mean? What does it all mean? Nothing.
Why is it backwards? Why is it?
No, it doesn't mean it.
I remembered somebody saying that there was mirrored text. And so when I got to that point, because it's kind of like it's like if it were written on a plexiglass. Like the right page, you see it, and then when you flip the page, it's the backwards inverted of it. So like I read it on the first one, and then when I flipped it, I was like, "That's the same thing it just said," and I was like, "Oh, got it."
Yeah, so I figured it out about 3 pages, and I was like, "Wait, why do I have my mirror out?" Wait,
I figured it out the first sentence. So I have had several people talking about like there being mirrored text. And that you didn't actually need the mirror. So I knew that there was something going on. That's the joy of like reading it 20 years after everyone else.
I did try to throw that out in the Discord too. I'm like, here's a couple things. Like, here's the link to the forum. Like, here's the down low on the mirrored text. Like, you don't need to do all of that kind of stuff. In terms of it reading like a textbook, some of it definitely does. There's a lot of references and resources listed. Some of those hide messages, like there's secret coded messages in some of those. But yes, there is some like technical stuff that's also discussed.
I mean, the majority of the mirrored text is them talking about like an HVAC unit and
yeah, it means nothing.
Plumbing, and I'm like, hey, I get this. I know plumbing. All right, but yeah,
Ads?
I don't know. I'm sorry, but thank you for paying me.
I don't see any ads coming up.
Poor cat. I'm sorry, love. I love you.
I don't think I've had any come in either.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be at that degree. I apologize.
Like I got one when it first went live, but then after that I haven't got another one.
Yeah.
Sometimes YouTube will just like randomly decide to put like 30 ads in a 1 hour live stream, and you're like, why?
But why? Yes, but why? All right. I don't think I gave this the first time around 4 stars, and then the second time around 5 stars. And if a 6 was available, I probably would have done that too. So the first time I read it, I had a lot of issues with Johnny's footers, like the footnotes. I was like, I don't care. Like, I just want to be back in the house. I want to explore the house. I want to see what's going on with the house. I literally don't care about this guy. I understand his purpose. His purpose is just to like make you feel like you're descending into madness along with him. And like, I'm there. I'm in it. I get it. We're good. And I started to not skim read, but I definitely didn't pay very much attention to it. So I just kind of like pushed through because I just wanted the house. I was like, nothing else matters. I just want the house.
At a certain point, the first time I read it, I 100% started skim reading Johnny's parts.
Yeah.
100%.
That's how I got through it so quick, was skim reading all of Johnny's parts.
And then the second time around, as I started getting in, his stuff is way more important than you think it is. The second time around, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mostly just skipped over like the sex and the drinking and the drugs part, because I'm not a middle-aged white man from the 70s. Like, I don't need to read about that. So
yeah.
I like that stuff. I would just like kind of like skim through and then read the rest of it. Like, oh, he's having sex again this week. Okay, all right, here we go.
There was a lot.
Oh God, it's this bitch Thumper again. My God,
who he never bangs.
Right?
No, but he was obsessed with wanting to bang her.
Yeah, no, he did. I was reading it. I was like, I don't remember some of this stuff. Like I'm like, this guy is falling apart. Not even at the seams. He's just falling apart everywhere. And chicks are still like, I'll do you. It's like, what does this dude look like? Like, who is he?
I feel like I pictured him living in this like super seedy, like
gross, like
LA, like with just like, I don't know, like very seedy, like I kind of pictured the neighborhood from Pretty Woman, where it was like people like slipping out of the thing to get away with not paying their rent, and it like all prostitutes lived in this one building, and like that's kind of like where I pictured him living, very seedy.
Well, I mean, he says like he boarded himself up, he stopped going out, like he started turning off appliances and turning stuff off and all this stuff. I'm like, is he even bathing? Like, it's just dirty. He's just dirty.
He hasn't had a bath in 6 months, but every girl he sees on the streets, like, let's go have sex.
You, me, let's go. And I'm like, why?
But here's the thing.
In what world?
But here's the thing. He's obviously falling apart. Is he really actually having sex with these women? Or is this all just a part of his brain saying, like, you know, it would be great if you pretended in your mind that you had sex with all these women because you stink and they won't touch you. Because, like, who's going to want them some sweaty balls that hadn't been, cleaned in 6 months? Come on. Nobody.
No.
I mean,
but like, here's the thing. And Kat said it too. She's like, yeah, Alicia, that list of people that Lude slept with, not him. Lude is disgusting. But I thought, so if he made it up, why not make up that he actually slept with Thumper after all that?
Maybe
True.
she's the one that he actually really wanted, and so he was like, I can't do that to her.
He did that to her a couple times in his head, for sure, at night. Like, there's no, why not just say that he did it? Does anybody else's copy of the book look like this? Just look like this? Anybody? Like, what do we?
No,
this is what
but
I'm
not a
looking at.
tabber. I have a couple of tabs at the beginning. You can't even hardly see them, but
I have a little bit of tabs
yeah, a little bit.
and like a little bit of annotations and like highlighting and thoughts and feelings throughout the book. Just like a little bit, though.
I started out highlighting and making notes, and then about 50 pages in was just like, nope, and just like went through it because I was at that point like I really wanted to know what was happening. I didn't want to like take the time to go through it, but I definitely, you talked about it in your video too, the this is not for you, like the dedication, this is not for you, and I wrote, well, that's not in any way ominous.
No,
Not at all.
no.
Let's go.
Yeah, here we go. And then one of the things that gets me too about like the introduction, it's like, you know, you might think that it doesn't affect you, and maybe it won't today, and maybe it won't tomorrow, but eventually you'll start to feel like unsafe in your own hallways, or they'll feel too long, or the quietness in your house will breathe. And I'm like, oh God, I hate it.
You know what bothered me the most was which, you know, all of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but the thing that bothered me the most was him not putting a space in between a lot. It's like the most aggravating thing to be annoyed by because he says it a lot. And
yeah. There's pages and pages and pages of his rants with no periods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, he is the king of the run-on sentence.
It's bad. And I think that has to be like a part of his psychosis setting in. Like but it's a lot.
Yes, but then you also start to think that if all of this was true, if this whole thing was true, and he was just this guy adding in, like editing it, adding in notes, who in their right mind would allow him to just continue to be the editor once it goes to a publisher to be published with all these run-on sentences and stuff? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was just like to maintain the integrity of the original text or what that was, because there are notes from him and then notes from editors. Yeah. Also, just a small aside, because for those of you that haven't read this and you're just here to get spoiled, let's discuss what the book is about a little bit, because we haven't. So this book is a Blair Witchy kind of a situation. We have a book. No, we have a movie, a documentary inside of a book, So we have all of the notes and documentation gathered by a man named Zampano. They were all gathered. He dies, but he's collected all of this information about a documentary that occurred in the past that is about a house. It's about a couple that moved into a house in Virginia with their 2 children. And then what happened in the house subsequently after that. And he has all of this documentation. He has information about videos that have now nobody can find, but he had this documentation of videos. He had interviews. He had all of these, articles, etc., about a documentary made about a house and this family that moved into it. So he's compiled all of it. He dies. Somebody else finds it, and they start to look through it and organize it and edit it. And then this is the result of that. So it is a book compiled by somebody dead. Information gathered by somebody who's now dead. Compiled by somebody now who is the footnote narrator. So Johnny, the footnote narrator, has found all of this information, all these documents, all this paper that explains what happened in the Navidson files. And that is the documentary about the house.
That doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
Even in the book, it doesn't actually exist. He says that he can't find anything. And then the guy that, Zampano, that put this together was blind, and he has no idea how he was able to transcribe this movie, this not movie, but like this documentary, because he's blind. So how, like, he doesn't even know how it happened. He's just gathering it all together in book form, making notes, making footnotes, and like clarifying things for people. That's really what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It goes further though.
It's very much like I'm gonna get this wrong because I always get them mixed up. The horror movie Sinister, like where the guy finds the movies in the attic and then like starts taking notes and like goes into this deep dive of like what's actually happening in the films, and it kind of starts out like that, but then
if he died and this other crazy person decided to gather all that together into a book,
right, it would be like that.
It would be like that.
Yeah.
So what we have is Johnny Truant, who has all of the dead man's notes. Those notes discuss and delve into this family: Will Navidson, his wife Karen, and their 2 children, whose names I don't remember because they are the spawns of Satan. What are
Chad
they?
and Daisy.
Chad and Daisy. They should be killed. They are so scary.
Crash Julie.
They are
Chad
terrifying.
Is a creepy fuck.
Every note I have about those children, I'm like, burn her. Burn her. Like, I can't.
My God.
They're terrifying. The children are scary.
Mm-hmm.
The children are terrifying.
They're
anyway,
creepy, but like, don't tell a character to burn a child.
They don't. The children are fine. Anyway, they move in. Will Navidson is a photo documentarian, a photojournalist. And he is famous. He's won prizes for his photos, and he travels the world taking these pictures. I just went wildly out of focus. And he travels and he takes these pictures, but that's taken him away from his family a lot. So they decide to settle down in this little house in Virginia. It's this quaint little town. His wife, 2 kids, they move into this home, and everything's going fine at first until they go away to a wedding and they come home and there's a passageway between the parents' bedroom and the children's bedroom. Just a passageway has just appeared, a doorway. From, like, if you think of a house with like a bedroom here and a bedroom here, and you'd have to go out one room and in the other to get to the other room. Now there's just, the parents can sit in their bed and see the children in their room, in the other room. And they're just like, well, that's
random hallway.
That's weird, but like, okay.
They were like, maybe a carpenter broke in while we were out of town and built it for us. Like, oh, that's a logical reaction.
But how do you build a room between 2 rooms without making the 2 rooms smaller?
Which they weren't. Yeah, they weren't.
But that was their first thought, was that, oh, a carpenter must have broken in and
they called the police and said somebody broke in, and they're like, well, you've got the nicest burglars ever. They did like handiwork. Like, what do you want us to do?
Like, where do we find these guys to break into my house?
Yeah, like, I don't know what you want us to do about that. So that happens, and they go, we're going to stay. It's fine. Just maybe like kids don't play in that passageway. We'll just like, it exists. It's a thing, like whatever. And they're like, it's convenient. We can see the children. Nah. But it creates this weird sense of warped space for Navy, for Will Navidson. They call him Navy. So he starts to realize that he's like, well, how did this extra space just occur? So he gets it in his head. He's gonna measure the house. So he goes outside and he measures from one side of the house to the other side of the house. He has his measurement and he's like, okay, great. I know how big the house is. He goes inside and he measures across, and he allows for like the space between the walls and everything. And he's like, oh, it's bigger on the outside than it is on the inside. No, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And he's like, how could that be? So then he drills holes through the wall, including the outside walls. He drills holes through the outside walls, all the bedroom walls, and he measures again. And it's still bigger on the inside than it is when he goes outside and measures on the outside. But by like an 1/18 of an inch, by like a tiny little bit.
A quarter of an inch.
A quarter of an inch. And then he gets a professional come in with like a laser to like measure it. And then it's like an 1/18 of an inch or some nonsense. And it like, regardless. Thank you. And I was like, that's negligible. Like, do we really need to freak out over that? But like, I get it. It's weird. It shouldn't be bigger on the inside than the outside, but also doesn't account for a whole passageway. So like, what are you going to do about it?
For reference, a quarter of an inch is the size of a pin. The width of a pin.
Yeah. It's tiny.
It's tiny.
It's not a hallway.
That too.
It's not a whole passageway that magically appeared between two bedrooms. So like, but he spirals. And that starts kind of the spiral. And he starts to really freak out over that, while you get Johnny kind of freaking out over a whole bunch of different things. But then he's like, oh, a closet just appeared in our living room. And we're like, what? Like,
somebody broke in and built us a closet. Yeah.
There was never a door there, but now there's a door. And they open the door to the closet, and it's like, it's a closet. And they're like, okay, great. And then they open it the next time, and it's a hallway that goes in 10 feet.
But it also, like, where it's situated, there's a video that they mention where he goes out one window in one shot, goes around the house, like the outside, in another window, and then back around, where you could see that the doorway, if it was a real doorway that would exist, would just go to the outside of the house. And it's against the outside wall. Mm-hmm. There's nothing there. There should be nothing there, not even a closet. It's not possible. That was the first time I was like, oh no.
That was it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an outside wall. There's no room for there to be anything. And yet
there's no room for a room.
There's no room for a room. It's it should just open to like outdoors. It doesn't. It opens into this endless, a 10-foot hallway. And he's like, that's weird. Surprisingly, his wife does not want him to go into said hallway. I mean, he does. It's cold. He puts his arm in there. It's like, it's very cold. There's a temperature change. It's different. The walls are completely black. There's a complete void of like light or any kind of like reflective anything in there. So he's got to kind of shine a flashlight in there. And even still, it really doesn't reflect light back again. It kind of like almost absorbs the light.
The light, yeah.
It's a weird situation. Everybody with us so far? How you doing in the chat?
Wasn't it originally not even a door? It was a doorway. Like, didn't they have to build a door over it?
I think they might have had to build a door. They definitely put locks.
I'm pretty sure it was just a black hole in the wall originally.
Yeah, there was a lot of, it might have been. And then there was a lot of locks added eventually. So, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at a storyline like that versus a storyline of a man who's like kind of descending into madness and or just like sleeping around, doing drugs, etc. Like, I mean, which story do you want to follow? I know what story I want to follow.
Okay, dude, whatever. Let's get back to the house.
Yeah.
Because he would have pages and pages of just his footnote. One footnote would take pages and pages, and I would be like, get back to the house.
Things are happening.
So we can read about the house some more.
Things are happening. So not surprisingly, his wife is like, don't go in there. And she was like, if you go in there, like, it's over. Like, I can't have you risking your life anymore. Like, this is weird. This is a weird thing. Don't do it. He goes in. Of course he goes in. And he journeys in and he realizes that it's gone from 10 feet to like this exorbitant distance. And there's other rooms and other passages, and he's taking all these turns, and he's in there. And he's in there and he's lost, and he's lost his way back out again. He doesn't know how to get back out. And then he hears demon child number 2 calling to him. His daughter is like in the doorway calling to him, and he eventually finds his way back out. I hate it. And then what does she say? That she wants to go play a game, like her new favorite game.
Always.
Hallways. Her new favorite game is Hallways. I hate it. I hate it.
I think I blocked out a lot of the kids stuff.
Oh,
I don't remember most of it.
It's not okay. So he calls in reinforcement. He calls in his brother. He has a twin brother. He calls in his twin brother, Tom. He comes over and like looks at it and tries to like calm down Karen, figure everything out. And then they end up calling in like a professional who does like all this exploring and whatnot. And he comes in with his 2 guys, like another team. And then they call in an old friend of theirs too. So there's like a whole bunch of dudes at this house, like all trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this hallway, because nobody's willing to kind of let it go. But Navy said, I won't go in, but like I'm going to send people in. We're going to figure out what this thing is. This is wild, right?
Can we just move?
Can we leave?
That's what I'm saying. I'd be like, look, I'm going to go stay at the hotel down the road. See ya.
But like I would like to leave.
They just continue to sleep in there, like, whatever.
No. Yeah. And his wife is like, oh, I should cleanse this house. I should sage it. I should feng shui it. Like I'm going to put things in certain areas, and then things kind of like go missing, or it doesn't work, or the animals freak out. The animals leave the house. She builds a bookshelf, and she builds it so it goes wall to wall so that there's no gap. Like she has them custom made.
A built-in,
so that it goes from like one end of the wall to the other end of the wall. And then like the next day, books are falling off of her shelf. And she's like, oh, and there's just like a gap between the walls and her shelves. Like the house is just shifting. They stay.
This is when you move out and you don't take any of your things, because who knows what the demons have touched.
They stay.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying.
I hate it. They continue to explore the house. They send in this other team. He sends in this other team. And they go in with like fishing wire and flashlights and cameras and glow sticks and weapons, because there's also a mysterious roaring that comes from the depths of this endless space. There's just an animalistic growl that comes from the depths, and they have no idea what it is. And they're like, we should go in. So they do, and they find a stairwell. Said stairwell just goes down into nothing. Goes down into nothing. Oh, they try burning it down at one point. It can't catch fire. I see you. I see your comment. Valid. It doesn't catch fire. So a crazy stairwell into nothing. Giant, like cathedral-sized rooms. And everything shifts. So like one wall would go this way, and then it goes another way. There's different landings, different platforms, different turns. It's literally a labyrinth inside of a space that shouldn't even exist. They don't know how or why or where it's existing, but it exists, and they are just exploring it. Okay.
Totally normal. Just exploring this labyrinth with cathedral ceilings that is opened up into the space between my wall and the outside, which is probably 2 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Seems valid.
So at this point in the book, how were you feeling, Jessica?
Well, first off, I don't even know that had I been living in the house, I mean, of course, when the weird middle room showed up, I would have left. But I never would have thought that a 1/4 of an inch would be a big, like, I don't know why he stuck on that 1/4 of an inch thing, because from what I remember of Navy's backstory, he has no history in construction. Mm-hmm. And I have history in construction. So I'm looking at it as he's adding in like drywall and 2x4s to make up his math, but like, does he know if it's 1/2 inch, 3/4, or 5/8 drywall? And how would he know? And does he know that 2x4s aren't actually 2 inches by 4 inches? They're actually smaller than that. They're made so that when you put drywall on it, it ends up being a 2x4. Like, does he know these things? Because they never express that he knows these things. So that took me way out of it. Because just like, I'm like, it's an inch. It's this much. It's this much, 1/4 of an inch.
Mhm.
How did we get here? I don't understand. Like, that part
Yeah.
made me crazy.
I think we even had that conversation that
Yeah.
she was like, would you be freaked out over 1/4 of an inch? And it's like, okay, I can understand that from inside to inside, it's easier to measure. But like from outside to outside is not that easy to measure because you would have to go like around the outside of the house, which could throw off your calculations and all this other stuff, right? So I'm like,
I don't understand.
I don't understand why 1/4 of an inch is that big of a deal. Like,
No.
And the room that magically appeared is more than 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
So like,
So
if you had like a 6-foot difference, I'd be like, what the crap happened?
But at least it accounts for that space, right? Like, at least you're like, whoa.
They added a
Yeah, right.
room. They don't account for the space.
No.
So I don't know why those 3 things.
But he measured through the space too.
He does
really
eventually drill holes
measuring
and measure, through.
Right.
through the new space. And then if I was measuring and it was off 1/4 of an inch, I would go, oh, I just don't know how to measure. It's probably perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Probably matches 100%. I just don't know how to measure because I'm not a carpenter.
Yeah.
I'm not a builder. I'm not an architect. I'm not making blueprints on the side. So it's totally fine. But no, he was like, no, that's too much.
I don't think that I was ever like severely. I don't think I was scared by any of like the things that were going on. Whereas I know a lot of people talk about being scared. I was just more uncomfortable or just like kind of vaguely creeped out. Like, this is really creepy, but not like I wasn't doing this thing.
Oh, I did that
and
thing.
checking out behind me to make sure there was nothing back there. I didn't do that.
I did that. There was like a Johnny passage where he's like, can you feel it breathing down your neck? Like, I feel it breathing down my neck. Do you feel it breathing down your neck? And then he's like, he said something else. Like, it felt
Just
as if
just out of vision,
just out of sight, just out of your periphery. And then he says something else where he said it was like a cloying malevolence that felt like it could reach right out and claw me, kill me, maybe even kill you. And I was like, what? No.
I feel like I read the majority of the book in my office, and my office is like the one safe space that I know that I have, because like as a ridiculously crazy pagan woman, like I know that like I've smudge stick this room, I've got my gargoyles, I've got like all of my stones and like everything in here. Like, this is the like if there's ever a haunting, this is the room I'm coming to. So I guess like in here I was like, it's fine.
We're okay.
I'm good in here. Like I'll read it in here where it's safe.
Yeah. No. I read it on my bed, which faces a hallway that runs the length of my apartment. And I was like, no.
And
I don't have any hallways.
Always off. Your lights are always off and it's always dark. And even when I was at your house, I was like, that is creepy. How do you sit here and look down this dark hallway all the time? Like, if I saw a silhouette of a person walking across, I would freak out.
Nope.
Because there's enough light coming from on the other side of the apartment that you would see a person, just like the silhouette of their shadow coming across, and I would lose it. I'm like, can we shut your door, please? Can we?
Oh, I sleep with it shut and locked. Like, I don't care. I have no shame. But like, but that does creep me out when he kind of like breaks and he says, like, do you feel it? Or he kind of really does have this deep descent into paranoia and psychosis, and it's because you're reading right from like his head, it does add to a lot of tension for me. And one of the things that I love about Mark's writing style is that he really does play on formatting, and not even mixed media, but like the way that he formats his text in really tense moments when the monster is roaring and the doors from the end of this dark hallway start slamming shut. And each page just has slam, 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 and you're turning pages as these doors slam, and then they start to be like, 3 slams on a page, and they're coming to you faster and faster. He has a scene where Navy is getting turned around in the house, and he's almost floating, and he starts to feel like he's falling, but then he realizes that like things have inverted. He's actually like floating, or, and the text on the page starts to move. He's got a really cool way of making you feel like you're in the moment with them, because you've got to adapt your world to his. That's just really brilliant. Like from a writing standpoint, constructing this book blows my mind.
Like even this one, it says rising higher and higher and higher until, and like it's literally, as you're reading it, it's going up the page. And then like when you go to the next page, it starts to go in like a different direction. So like it disappears altogether. It's just down here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then here it's kind of like this like hallway situation. Mm-hmm. It's crazy the way he does it. Yeah.
I think there's one page where he goes, everything is stretching, and the word stretching takes the whole page. It just like, and the letters get further and further apart, just in a vertical line up the page. They're just.
And there's a scene where he's crawling through a hallway, and like the hallway itself is like starting to get smaller on him, and the words on the page get smaller and smaller and smaller.
They're
and
like
smaller.
this
and
big.
It feels
yeah.
It feels very claustrophobic. He did
Mm-hmm.
such a good job with that.
There's a lot of things that, like, as a writer, I look at and go, oh, all right. And, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think someone said he wrote it in, like, 2 years. I don't even know. I couldn't write that in 2 lifetimes.
No.
It's too much. There's too much. Too much.
No, it's way too much. And it definitely, and that's why I say it's an experience. It's an immersive thing. He wants you, like, everybody's like, I'm so confused, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, no, I get it, but lean into it. It's intentional. It's meant to kind of unnerve you and kind of keep you guessing. And he wants you to feel just as confused and chaotic and scattered as his characters are, so that you kind of start to lose yourself or wonder if things are or aren't real too, which is brilliant. And the way that he does that is genius. It's ridiculous.
I think part of the reason why I didn't feel scared by a lot of the things that Johnny was going through is because he was typically drunk or high or on some form of a drug, or like things that make you paranoid anyway. So I'm just like, all right, you paranoid drug addict, let's move on. Let's go to something else now. I think if it was from a more reliable narrator, like even if it was someone that was just crazy, because in my opinion, crazy people are more reliable than drug addicts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
In the moment, like if it was coming from a more reliable narrator, I might have felt more scared. But because like at that point in the beginning, like I was still very exasperated with his plot line altogether. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, whatever, let's move on. All right, you're scared. Boo-hoo. Let's be you, dude.
So that's kind of where he's going at the same time you're following this story from the house, but you're getting these elongated footnotes that take you from moments at the house to moments with Johnny. And it is frustrating. My first read, I was so frustrated because I just wanted to read about the book. And every time the book started to get really good, we'd have to switch to Johnny. And I was like, God. Drove me bananas. So I think when we're just kind of getting to the exploration of this house, and they do a couple different ones. And one of the longer ones, they go down and they have all these provisions and tents and things. And they go down into the house, and they go deep. They go a little bit too deep. They go down this staircase. They get to the bottom of it. It takes them forever. And this is a strange shifting staircase. Sometimes it takes them forever to get down, but like not that long to get up, or like they're down in no time. But then like when they come back up, it takes forever. So everything in there is very fluid and it changes a lot. And one of the theories is that it never appears the same way twice. It never appears the same way to each individual person in there. So there's theories that it really does kind of adapt itself to the specific fears and anxieties of each person that enters it, which is terrifying. But they do go down, and paranoia, psychosis, everything kind of takes over. Our one guy, Holloway, who's one of like the lead explorers in there, goes rogue, shoots somebody else in there, and they're trying to get him back up and out, and he does not make it up and out. But there's this roaring and this chaos of within the house and within this space, and it just builds and builds until the house really starts to kind of take over, and the wife is like, that's enough of this. I'm gonna take the kids and go.
Long enough.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, now we're gonna go. Like, okay, like they just brought a body out, and now you're like, oh, all right, we'll leave. Like little kid footprints in the blood, and I was like, I hate these children. It's awful.
That was the night too that that like I solidified my hatred for the son, like the child, in his absolute utter creepiness, because like the house is shifting and like closing in on them, and they're like, you just watch like a bunch of people, like there's blood everywhere, and he's just like chilling in the backyard laughing at all of them. He thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is fucking creepy.
He spends more and more time outside, and they like at times just have to like find him wandering around in the woods. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I wouldn't be in the house either, but also super creepy. At one point, which like slays me, because Navy and his twin brother Tom have a very strained relationship, and you can tell that there's a lot of love there, and they're trying to like reconcile some things. But at one point, the house starts to kind of cave in on itself, and demon spawn number 2, Daisy, is still in there, or 1, I don't know which number it is, but she's terrifying. She's still in there, and Tom tries to save her, and it does not end well for Tom. He gets her out through the door, and I'm pretty sure the door or like the window or something crushes in on somebody else's hand when they're getting her out. Like the house is angry, and just kind of the floor turns into almost like an escalator, like a moving like sidewalk underneath him, and just swallows him. And the brother goes down because he saved the daughter. I still hold that like she could have gone, he could have stayed, but you know.
Dude, you can't blame the guy for trying to save his brother's kid.
No, I get it. But then, like, literally, she's coming out. Somebody's got, like, a crushed hand. Uncle Tom just got swallowed by a house. And he's sitting in the backseat of the car going, like, I'm ready to leave when you are. Like, I don't know. Screaming. Everybody's screaming. Like, everybody's freaking out. And he just walks out of the woods, sits in the back of the car, and goes, okay.
I also got a distinct impression that these kids weren't like this before they got into the house, that the house really affected them. Because they seem pretty like happy-go-lucky, like playing and like running around a lot. I don't remember them in the beginning having any super creepy moments until after the house started really like getting crazy. Yeah.
They were playing in voids.
The kids were in the hallway. Like I think they were I don't think they were the first ones. I think they were the first ones all the way in the hallway.
I think they were the first ones all the way in the hallway.
And that was why they put the door on it and all the locks.
And I think if you think about the upstairs extension between the parents' bedroom and the children's bedroom as an extension of the house, you know, like it's just another version of what's down there massively, right? Like it's still a space that shouldn't exist within the house that does.
Yeah.
And the kids played in that all the time.
Yeah.
They were always in there.
Yeah.
Which is not okay. It's not.
So I'm hoping once they got out of the house, they went a little bit more back to normal. They weren't that creepy their entire life, but who knows? Because
I know Karen leaves them for a little bit and with the grandmom, and I'm assuming that they have a relatively normal life. There is a passage that says how each person was affected by it. Like I forget what the kids had to deal with, but there was like bedwetting or night terrors, and then they eventually faded. But they do say what the effects of the house are on each person. Somebody had like erectile dysfunction for a little bit, which was hilarious because it was a dude that slept with everybody. They said that he just couldn't get it up for a while. Oh, where is it? You discuss
I feel
amongst
like Mark
yourself. I'll find it.
Danielewski is very obsessed with people's penises and
You're
what
not
they're
wrong.
doing with them.
You're
Like,
not wrong.
we don't care. We don't care.
I will say for a long time,
I care a little about penises.
I was
Not
speculating.
about the ones in the house.
Right, not about the ones in the house. I was speculating that Johnny was Chad as a grown-up. But that didn't track. I
No,
don't think.
but I get it.
Because he's fucked up, and that kid was fucked up.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was.
So I was like trying to figure out if like I was trying to do the math and then like try to figure out if it could work, and I couldn't make it work, but I definitely thought about it for a while.
I literally have it highlighted. It says the wall snapped shut, shattering all the fingers on both of Tom's outstretched hands. And Navy screams to him, "God damn it, Tom, run!" This time when he stops, he knows he has no chance. "Hang on, I'm coming to get you," Navidson yells. "Oh, Christ," Tom mutters. And then Tom disappears. He tumbles into the blackness. His twin is stolen. And then it says Chad, who crouched among the trees, listening, and finally watching over the sobs of his father and little sister until something dark and unknown told him to find his mother. And I just have an annotation that says, "Kill the children." Like, just kill them. I don't understand. Like,
Says the nanny.
listen, not all children, but those children had to die.
They were affected. It wasn't their fault.
Okay, well, I'm looking for the side effects.
It's page 396 was the side effects, and then 406 was the post-exposure.
Yes.
Like the as they time went on deal.
Yeah. So we had Daisy, who had a side effect was excitement, intermittent fever, scratches. Okay. Wax, who was the one that hooked up with his wife. He was the one that made out with Navy's wife and caused some tension. He had enduring impotence, to which I said, LOL. Chad had rising aggression, persistent wandering. Karen, who is the wife, had prolonged insomnia, frequent unmotivated panic attacks, melancholia, you think, and a persistent cough, which is just, okay. Navy had obsessive behavior, weight loss, night terrors, vivid dreaming, accompanied by increased mutism. He just stopped talking, which is fine. And then eventually, post-exposure, it says Daisy had end of fevers, her arms healed. Wax eventually got potency back. Oof. Chad had better goal-oriented flow of ideas and logical sequencing, decreased aggression and wandering, and Karen had improved sleeping, no more unmotivated panic attacks, decreased melancholy, and cessation of cough, and Will had no more night terrors, and he could talk again. So, like, eventually, the influence of the house did go away.
Though it does say on Karen that the panic attacks, dark and closed places will still initiate a response. So she grew to be claustrophobic. So
She was before.
Claustrophobic to begin with.
She had a fear of dark places and had claustrophobia from prior trauma before the house.
Yeah, but now she'll have like super
because she's a woman.
Unmotivated panic attacks. So
yeah.
She's a woman, and no woman in this book made it out without some form of sexual trauma. So
I concur, which we will get to. So basically they leave the house. They all leave the house. And then eventually Navy says, "No, I can't let it end there. I have to go back. I have to I have to do it." Because he had previously not really gone into the house, and he had held true to his thing. He's like, I'm not going to go in. After his one time that he went in and didn't tell her, sorry, my butt. He didn't tell her, but he went in. And then so he goes, "Nope, I have to go back." So he leaves Karen. He goes back because they're already kind of like, obviously struggling. And he goes back into the house, and he brings all of his everything he needs. He brings his tent, his flashlights, his cameras, everything to document what happens in there. He brings a bike with a basket, and he's like pulling like a little trailer behind it. Because he's like, this is it. I'm going in. I'm going to figure out where this thing stops. Okay. He starts riding his bike like the freaking, who's the lady from the Wizard of Oz that rides the bike before the witch? It was like Annie M on I don't know. No, it was like the lady that was mean to the dog. Whatever. Just a bicycle. Just picture it. Lots of bicycle. And he realizes that like he is picking up speed. He's covering like miles and miles and miles a day, because no matter which direction he turns in, he's going downhill, which is weird. And
weirder than a quarter of an inch, at least.
Much stranger, right? Like, can we forget about that part? Because it's really, I don't understand how that's relevant. So he is biking for miles every day. And he's like, this is all downhill. I'm never going to make it back out again. I'm never going to have the provisions to get back up. Like, it's going to be so much harder to go uphill to get back out of here. And eventually he's like, I have to turn around. I don't have enough food. I don't have enough water. I have to turn around. But when he turns around, he realizes he's going downhill again, no matter what direction he goes in. And then I think he gets to the staircase, and he goes down the staircase. No. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I skipped a part. When the whole team was in there, when Holloway went rogue and shot somebody, they were bringing people back up the stairwell with like a rig, like with a pulley. Mm-hmm. So they get everybody up. And when they got to the top with one person, they would drop a quarter down to let you know that they were sending the rope back down. And they would do that kind of repeatedly until everybody got back up. The last person down there, they dropped the quarter, and it took so long to get to the bottom and finally fall, that they then later scientifically proved that it fell more than the depth of the earth, like the circumference of the earth. Like mathematically, it fell for longer than the earth is wide, long, tall, round. Not a thing. Shouldn't have been able to happen. But that's a thing that did happen. So that was fun. So anyway, Navy is lost. He goes through the weird floaty thing. Things are roaring. He's like, just come and eat me. I don't know what to do. I can't get back out of here. I'm done for. He's got extreme hypothermia. He has no food. He's in a bad way. He finds a window, which is the only window that's ever appeared in this space. And he climbs through it. He's like, oh, that's weird, because he gets over there. There's a platform and there's nothing. There's just nothingness. And he goes like, I don't want to be here. And he turns to go back through the window to the other side. The window is gone. In fact, everything is gone except for this little platform that he's standing on. That's it. That's all he's got. So he just has to kind of like float on this thing. And he still has the one bag that he has on him. And fun times. He has a pack of matches and he has a book. You want to know what book he has? He's got a book called House of Leaves. And he does some mental math, and he realizes he is going to have to start burning the book to create light, because the matches aren't going to last him, and he needs light and he needs some warmth. So he lights a match and reads the page. He lights another match, reads the back side of that page, and then he tears that page out, rolls that page up, lights it with the next match, and reads by the light of that page to give himself something to do while he's on this floating disc. Other fun fact, as he gets to the end of this, he's like, oh, I got to burn the spine. I got to burn the cover. Like, I'm going to run out of stuff soon. And then they say that House of Leaves, he's like, he does his math. He's like, has 210 pages. And he's not going to be able to do it. This book has 500. I'm saying wrong numbers. 700. Thank you. 710 pages. His book has. Ours has 709, which means the book inside the book is longer than the book. Our book is smaller than the book. which I think is just a nod to the house being bigger on the inside than the outside, but the book is bigger on the inside than the outside, which is a nice little mind F that he threw in there. It's a fun little thing. So let's see what we got in the comments real quick. Any thoughts, ladies? Kat, I did. There was a Kevin Bacon movie that I thought was this. I forget the name. I didn't watch it, but the trailer literally had them measure the inside and outside of the house, and it's not matching. Fun fact, Kevin Bacon, I believe, was actually scheduled to be in this movie. This is supposed to be made into a movie. It's been supposed to be made into a movie for a very long time and has yet to be made into said movie. So maybe that's where you were coming from. I don't know if it's like completely out of an option, but I believe this was scheduled and slated to be made into a movie.
I made a comment about that too. I think Wikipedia says that it fell through, and in 2020 they released the written screenplay.
Okay.
It's free on the internet for you to peruse.
Oh my gosh. Mark D said that he did not want to make this book into a movie. Oh, okay. I don't know how it would do. Man, I have to imagine that an experience that actually captured this book would be almost a dangerous thing to like unleash on people and then send them out into the world. Like it does have a disassociation with reality that can come from this book that I've heard a lot of people say results from this book that I definitely felt the first time around that may not be the safest thing to like send people into a theater and then leave.
So it would be interesting because it's not just about the house. You would have to have it like flipping back to like showing Johnny getting all of this together. And a lot of his stuff is sex and drugs. Like that is just a lot of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it would feel like such a disjointed movie if somebody were to actually make it.
Yeah. So the story of the house ends effectively when Karen goes back to the house and she starts to like feel or hear, or there's something where she's just like, I'm here. I'm going to get him out. I'm going to figure this out. And she is able to actually get Navy out of the house. So we still don't know how. It's not super explained. He's in there. He doesn't know how, but somehow together they end up out on the yard. She goes in to the house. She decides to walk into the hallway and she comes out with him. And then they're just out on the lawn, out where the hallway should not be. Like they end up outside. And he's missing like a hand, like they have to remove a hand. He loses like fingers and an eyeball and all this stuff from like hypothermia. And to the best of our knowledge, according to the book, the house still belongs to them. There's fences up around it so nobody can get in, and they refuse to sell it because they don't want anybody else to be in there, and they do not reside there anymore. That is how that story ends. I find it odd that she went into, but I mean,
I don't find it so odd. I
for
feel
her
like
husband,
the relationship that they had, she was like, I'm gonna go get my man. I don't care what happens to me. Like I'm gonna go get my man.
Yeah.
There was these weird things between them to where she would be so excited that he was on his way home and like coming in, but by the time he came in, she would be like super distant and not show him at all ever that she was excited to see him and that she loved him. And I don't know if that's just like, wasn't she from like Russia or something?
no, I don't think so. I think it was more the fact that he continuously left. Like he was a leaver because it was a work thing, right? So like the more that she was excited that he was there, the more it hurt when like he left. Or, like I think in her mind, maybe at least if she could say, oh, he doesn't know how happy I am to see him, so I can justify him leaving. Like if he really knew how much she wanted him to be there and how much she wanted to spend time with him when he left, it would hurt that much more because he would have continued to leave.
Well, and I think it takes a very like dependent and mentally probably not okay woman to leave your children and put a man before your children. Because essentially she's going there hoping that she finds him, but with no proof and not knowing that she's going to make it out alive, because how many other people have died there already. And so she's like, well, I'll just leave my kids here with my mom and I'll go find him and I might die, but they'll be fine. Not many women are going to do that.
Not many, but she also was not the most maternal of women.
Well, it's true. I mean, have you met her kids?
Like, not, I would leave them. I would leave them so quick.
Just like I'd leave them too. I feel that.
I would leave them. I get it. I get it.
Like with her character development, I wasn't surprised that she went back in. I'm not surprised that she chose him over the kids. Like, honestly.
No. So there is a theory, I believe Kat mentioned on Twitter, that this entire book is a love story. And my whole theory was, okay, I can see that. Like, at the end, there was definitely a love between Navy and Karen. It was not healthy all the time. It was dependent at times. It was, distant and troubled and, oftentimes problematic. But they both did sacrifice for one another, not maybe obvious ways and maybe not in ways that they communicated, but they loved each other. And in the end, they were there for one another. So, like, I get it. Like, if this book is a love story, there's no way it's a love story in any other timeline than Navy and Karen's, because Johnny's a hot mess. So there's no chance that the love story is in his timeline.
Or is it?
I was so wrong.
Or is it?
I was so wrong. Because what we haven't really discussed is that Johnny definitely does not have an easy life. Johnny has been in foster families. He was separated from his mother when she was taken away to a psychiatric facility. His father either died or left after that. I don't remember which.
His dad died in an accident.
That's right. He was a pilot?
He was a pilot, but he actually died in a trucking accident.
Trucking accident, yeah. And there was, he needed somewhere to go. So he would go into these foster families. Not many of them worked. He would run away from them, etc. And I think one of the most shocking for me in my first read, insights into his past, was the letters from his mother, which we could probably break down for forever. But the letters from his mom span a very large chunk of time, and also psychosis. I don't know. Do they say for sure what she has? I think schizophrenia. But I don't.
There was a letter about from a doctor, right?
I don't remember if there was one where it talked about what was actually wrong.
I don't know what it was exactly. But you see a descent into, she starts off, thank you so much, my dear boy, and I love you so much. And I heard that you ran away from your foster family, and what a brave boy you were. You must have had the best, experiences or, adventures. You'll have to write and tell me about it, or thank you so much for writing me. And it starts off, kind of sweet. And then it ends up with a lot of, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. And we learn that he was burnt by oil that fell from the stove. And she keeps saying, like, he reached out to, like, catch it. So he has that. There's also an instance where it's described that she tried to, like, strangle him, and that's when the dad took her away and sent her, for help, and took her away from the kid. And then there's a lot of letters about her time in there and how she's, wasn't allowed to write to him and wasn't allowed to see him. There are coded messages that are traumatic, where she writes to him in code, which I did not know about the forums my first read, and I decoded all of that. But there's definitely a descent, and then eventually she does commit suicide, and then he can go and, like, there's letters saying, come and grab the rest of her belongings. But I think that spanned like 57 pages. There was like 57 pages of her letters to him. It was a large chunk of backstory into her. And then also gives you pause in some of Johnny's later entries because he starts to say, you know, nothing I just wrote about was true. Like he starts to write about friends coming to help him and staying with doctors, and they got him back to eating and working out, and he was feeling healthy again. And he's like, I don't have any friends. That was all a lie. And you start to realize that maybe there's, you know, a hereditary issue that passed on to him. That, I mean, there's obviously he's kind of descending into not knowing what's real and what's not. And that kind of starts pretty early on when he talks about being surrounded by blood or covered in blood and not knowing what happened. And did I kill somebody and did I not? And not kind of knowing the lines between real and not. So that's fun.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
Is Johnny Truant's name, is his last name isn't actually Truant, is it?
Why?
Because if you look on page 643 where she dies,
Mm-hmm.
they always put Mr. John and then they X out the rest of his name.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, but his mother's last name is Lievre, which is misspelled. It's spelled differently twice in this letter. But then on page 644, it has his last name blanked out again. Why would he blank out his name if we already know his name is Johnny Truant?
So I don't know why anybody does anything.
Well, they also blank out his father's last name in the obituary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why not his mom? And then why his? Like, if we know. Like, I didn't ever think about that before.
But maybe she had her own. Like, maybe she didn't change it, or maybe...
I can get that she can have a different name. I'm not upset about that. It's just that why blank out Johnny's or his father's name if we already know it's Truant from the beginning?
So one of the things that we do learn is that these are a compilation of the actual articles that they compile, right? So this is supposed to be a representation of the actual letters that they just put into the book. So maybe at some point he had X'd out, like there's large parts of this text that are X'd out for no apparent reason that don't seem to mean anything. So maybe he had X'd that out because it's a last name and an address and maybe a phone number or something that he didn't want to be included. And then eventually he takes ownership for the story.
Because it even says on 584, at Mr. Truant's request, we have omitted the last name of his father as well as several other details. But usually you have your father's last name. Usually. Either your mother or your father. You're not just going to have a made-up last name. We know his mother's last name. We know his last name is Truant. So either he has just a made-up last name, or something that the dude's not really his dad, or something's going on there.
He might also have the last name of the family that he was in the foster system, because they may have adopted him. I don't know if they ever state expressly whether he was adopted or not.
I don't know.
It seems like they kind of talk about how he just kind of like jumped from family to family for a long time until he was already kind of older, and then just kind of finished out
with the one guy that was abusive.
Yeah.
And he does refer to that guy as his father a couple of times because the editors make note to clarify at one point that he's talking about his biological father and not the foster father.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he changed his name when he got older, just
he might have
to not be associated
connected
with either his mom or his dad.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting look at her descent, and it's clearly something that affected him as an adult. He talks about losing money and losing sleep and kind of losing all of his worldly possessions, but keeping the locket that he picked up. So in the letter from them, they say like picked up or like
one
to be
jewelry.
retrieved one jewelry. And he talks about this locket that he has that was from her. And he's like, I don't wear it. I don't do anything with it. And I think eventually he does pawn it when he's really hard up towards the end. But you can tell it's the one thing that he kept. He held on to it. He definitely had an affection for his mother. There was something there, right? And so it led me to believe, like, okay, well, here's the thing. Let me look at it a different way. Let me see what this story is really about. You get this focus over and over again on his mom, and she keeps popping up, and his relationship with her, being separated from her. And so I wanted to look a little bit more into that. We also have a giant footnote from him towards the end of this book, which technically ends on like what, page 5 something, and then it's all like appendixes and appendi at a certain point back here. Where is it? So by 528, the actual book is over, and we get into exhibits and appendixes and different pictures and articles and whatnot, which are still important, and you read them throughout the book in different ways. But this last chunk of the book, like the actual physical last part of the book, is a giant footnote from him. I mean, giant footnote from him.
491 to 521, I think, are his like diary entries.
Yes.
I think it might actually be prior to the appendices.
Yes.
It's there's appendices before the appendices.
There are appendi before the appendi. So that's one of the things that kind of stuck out to me too, because you have a very clear idea of exactly how the story of Navy and Karen ends. But this time around, I really didn't understand how Johnny's story wraps up. Like, what actually happens to him? Do we have any closure? Because the first time around, I did not care. I didn't care even a little bit. But this time around, I was like, I want to pay a little bit more attention. So I started to read it, and it definitely reads like this man is spiraling. He is forgetting that his friend has died. He is not eating. He is not taking care of himself. He has pawned things. He is losing control. He's traveling around maybe. The explanation of how Lou dies is a whole other thing that I don't even want to think about. It's so bad. So bad. So we get into this whole thing where he's cataloging each day. He's like sleeping under benches. I'm unclean. Blech. Then the man that indirectly causes Lude's death, gets him hooked on all these pain pills and drugs and whatnot, not that he wasn't already on them, is the fiance of a woman that Johnny has slept with. We have a whole altercation there where he is beating this man. He's thinking about killing him. He doesn't kill him. Then he's thinking for some reason about stealing this girl who he's already slept with and stealing her away to somewhere and having his way with her, whether she wants it or not, which is disgusting, obviously. But then he doesn't. And he walks away and he goes to this beach and then you're like, oh, okay, you know, we're fine. He's finding a little bit of Jesus and he walks away and he's done. And then he talks about going with these friends and these friends take him in and they're doctoring him and he's feeling better and he's eating. And then he's like, that was a lie. I don't have friends. I'm a hot mess. And we're like, well, okay, cool. It's bad. He absolutely had a psychotic break. He's in a bad way. So that the very end of his journals, he's talking about a story that the doctor told him about a woman who had a baby who was born, who was technically alive, but wasn't going to make it. And it was being kept on like ventilators and she sat with it and talked to it and, you know, tried to nurture it. But eventually they knew that the baby wasn't going to make it. And they took the baby off of life support and the baby passed away. And that's the end. And I was like, how was that the end of his story? That doesn't make any sense. So I had finished my vlog. I'd finished my reading and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, that can't be it. That can't be how it ends. So I went back and Amber pointed out, well, that story he said was told by the doctor, but he already said the doctor doesn't exist because that doctor was a figment of his imagination in some psychotic break. There was no doctor taking care of him. There was no, and he even talks in that section when he's there and supposedly being doctored about talking to this doctor about stuff. And I'm like, so then who is this? Who is this person? What is this story really? I still have no answers. So if you have any theories, let me know. But I also went back through and looked at the dates of all of his journal entries, and the actual dated journal entry, that is the last dated journal entry, is not the last one. So it actually comes on page, I don't flipping know. Stay with me. I thought I had it marked down. Oh, so it's actually August 28th, 1999, which is on 5/12, where he is a homeless person. He goes into a bar with $3, buys beer, the dollar beer night, buys a beer for everybody in the band, sits down with a glass of water, and he's listening to the band. And the band is playing a song, and he starts to listen to the lyrics, and he's sitting there. They're talking about a 5-minute hallway, which is one of the songs that, or one of the names of the videos that came out of the Davidson house was the 5-minute hallway. It's also a song by Danielewski's sister. She did a whole album that is literally for this book that I listened to while reading this book. It was terrifying. But it was that bad. Shut your hole. So they're like, he eventually talks to the band and they thank him for buying him the drink. And they're like, he's like, 5-minute hallway? Like, where'd that come from? And he's like, oh man, this book, it's going to blow your mind. Like, just, you're never going to be the same. Use caution, but like, you can look at this book. And he looks at the book and he realizes that it says like House of Leaves by Zampano with introduction and notes by Johnny Truant. It's a circle round and stone publication, first edition. And he says that I was amazed and shocked and suddenly very uncertain about what I had done. There's no question I cherished the substance of those pages, however imperfect, however incomplete. And then he didn't know whether or not to say that he was the author or the guy that, put it all together. And so he goes, he returns the book with a simple thank you and wanders back to the park, wrapped himself up in his corduroy jacket, stretched out beneath an old ash tree, and rested his head on the earth. Until at long last, I drifted off to a dream where I was soaring far above the clouds, bathed in light, flying higher and higher, until finally I fell into a sleep no longer disturbed by the past. And then it also says, I didn't need to leave, not yet. There was time now, plenty of time. And somehow I know it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And so that's the actual last entry. It's not like the last one in the book, but it's the last one that's actually by date. Yeah. Is so my whole thing of like, how did things end for him?
Everything's gonna be all right.
He laid down. He found out that the book was already out in the world and then went outside, laid down under a tree. And finally, after years and years and years of being haunted by this story and having all these crazy dreams and everything, not being able to sleep because he was so haunted by this story, he was able to sleep, which I interpreted as that dude did.
Not accurate.
Not accurate.
But here's the part that it stops me is that how would this book have been out there in the world for people to read and him not make any money off of it when it has his name on the cover? So, and then seeing how it took his last name off in the back, I'm wondering if it was just like a thing where he took his money, changed his name, and then like went out in the world and like lived his life separately away from all of this. Maybe like it was just over for him. It was gone. It was done.
Yeah.
He didn't want anyone to find him. So he left out his father's name. He left out like his name, his real name, and just kind of took his residual checks and took off.
Johnny Truant was a pen name.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, it has to be because it's his last name is marked out. If we know his last name, there's no reason to mark it out. So that has to mean something, right? That has to.
The thing about you thinking that it means that he's dead, I know there's a sentence somewhere, like when we're in the house, where they're talking about, the speculation that the house has something to do with the afterlife, and or that whole spiel. They talk about how the house will not support animals. Like the animals, they run into it, but magically just like disappear out of it. And that very last thing where he's talking about is that he's woken up by a dog that's sniffing at his clothes and licking his face and stuff. So wouldn't that mean that he was alive? Maybe.
I don't know.
So I think the reason that she's had this is because on the contents page, there's one at the very bottom that says Yggdrasil, and it's on page 709. So when you go to page
the last page of the book,
it's the very last page of the book, and it's this like poem, Yggdrasil. So we looked it up, and Yggdrasil is this like tree. It's an ash tree that is meant to symbolize like all of the branches are different realities, and like. So this one thing of life has all these separate realities. So it's supposed to be kind of like the afterlife and like all these different things. And he falls asleep in the thing under an ash tree. The house is on Ash Tree Lane. Like it mentions ash trees a lot. And so I think that's where my theory is that he changed his name and left it alone and like moved on with his life and lived. I don't think he was ever really homeless, honestly. I think that was just because he had to have been getting checks. And he was just like, I'm just going to write this out and be done with my life. You know, like that life is gone.
Yeah.
But I also think that that all of this is just a brainchild of his. I don't think that any of it's real. I think that it's a fiction story that he made up. That's my theory.
Well, like Yggdrasil is Norse mythology, and it is the tree. It's like the translation is Tree of the Worlds, and so it holds the 9 realms that the Norse believed in, basically. So technically, it all could have existed, just in different worlds.
Sure could have.
I
also flat out cried. I don't know if you watched my vlog. It was a cry. I cried a lot. Because here's the thing. I know in my heart of hearts, I know that this man was having a psychotic break, supposedly, right? But in one of the things that was marked after, so October 31st, which was later in the day after. So October 31st is the day that Lude dies. And then he journals it early in the story. But then also in this last section, he journals it a couple times. And in the later one, he says that this is when he's like out on the beach. He's doing his thing. And he says, what was it? There's no periods anywhere. A long column of my yesterdays, towards the end though, not the very end, of course, where I had stood at the age of 7, gripping my mother's wrists, trying as hard as I could to keep her from going. Her eyes, I recall, melting with tenderness and confusion as she continued muttering strange, unwieldy words. Mommy's going to be okay, don't worry. But even though my father had his hands on her shoulders, trying as gently as he could to lead her away, I couldn't let go. So she knelt down in front of me and kissed my cheeks and my forehead and then stroked my face. She hadn't tried to strangle me, and my father had never made a sound. I could see this now. I can hear it too perfectly. Her letter was hopelessly wrong, maybe an invention to make it easier for me to dismiss her, or maybe something else. I have no idea. But I do know that her fingers never closed around my throat. They only tried to wipe away the tears from my face. I couldn't stop crying. I'd never cried that much before. I'm crying now all these years, and now I can't stop. I can't see. I couldn't see then. Of course, she was lost in a blur. My poor father taking her from me, forced to grab hold of her, especially when they got to the foyer and she started to scream. Screaming for me, not wanting to go at all, but crying out my name. And there it was, the roar, the one I've been remembering. In the end, not a roar, but the saddest call of all. Reaching for me, her voice sounding as if it would shatter the world, fill it with thunder and darkness, which I guess it finally did. Like a bad dream, the details of those 5.5 minutes were just went and left me to my future. So for me, he specifically mentions 5.5 minutes of her being separated from him, pulled down a hallway that to a 7-year-old probably felt like it was an eternity long, right? Like as his father takes her away from her. So like, is the whole house an analogy for his mother being taken away from him, and the roar that broke the world, split the world into darkness, went on for an eternity, is like a mother's cry for their child. Like that's 5:17. We're like nearly at the end of the book. And on the very last page, you get the ash tree. So like you get at the very, very end, these hints that like, maybe I read it entirely wrong, or maybe at the very, very end, they're finally shedding light on something. Now, is that the most hopeful, least painful and psychotic part of the entire book? Yes. Is that like an idealistic way to assume that this whole thing came about? Yeah. But like in my heart, I'm like, oh, I just kind of wanted, can it be that? Like,
yeah. And again, like I said, I do believe this is just Johnny's brainchild that he created this book. So he is kind of Mark Danielewski, basically. He's just this one author that created all this, but didn't really want to be in the spotlight. And maybe it was his way of dealing with the trauma of losing his mother and his father at a young age and being passed around through foster care, because that, it's very traumatic for a kid, And also Storytime with Ellie said, wasn't this written on scraps of paper that was passed around throughout a long period of time being put together in book form? In the book, they mention that. In actual reality, in this world that we live in right now, that did not actually happen.
In this branch of the tree.
It was just created as a book. And there are multiple editions, but those are just like foreign editions. In the US, this is the main edition that you think is remastered for. No, it's how it was originally published in the US. So
yeah,
that didn't actually happen in this reality. Maybe in a different one. I don't know. But
so then that did kind of lead me to believe that there's a chance, there's at least a theory, there's enough evidence to support a theory that the love letter would be between, or the love story in this would be between the son and the mother. And that this world, this void was created out of this pain. And that if you look at her letters, like, yes, the woman had documented, mental illness, but also if you look at her letters as a way to push him away so that maybe he accepts his foster family and forgets about her, and that eventually leading to her feeling so isolated and alone because she's experiencing a lot of trauma in the facility, and that eventually leads to her suicide, but it still leaves him in a better place, then I can see it, then I get it, but yeah. I don't know.
If you think about this person writing this story to not only deal with the trauma of losing his mother, but then about foster care, about his own mental health, and just kind of this is kind of what comes out of it, this thing with this long hallway that takes you out into this roar. It's an interesting theory. Nothing's proven because Mark Danielewski won't tell us what happened. He won't tell us what he envisioned. He likes to leave it to our imagination, which makes me angry because I just want you to tell me if I'm right or not. but he'll say, in forums, he'll just say, whatever you believe is what happened is what happened. Like that, and it's very frustrating, dude. I need to know,
dude.
But again, I could be wrong, and he could have died, and this could have really happened, and I don't know.
Who knows?
Not me.
Nope. There's also on the forum, there's extensive forums for this. There's also forums that say that this entire book is his mother's, and that it's nobody else's, that Zampano was like an ex-lover of his or hers, or maybe even Johnny's father, that no child existed, that the story about the child that passed was Johnny, that this entire thing is a mental construct formed by her after her sexual assault and trauma inside the facility. In the coded letter, it does explain that she's like repeatedly sexually assaulted and raped by the attendants, by the janitors, by everybody there. So they're saying too that only men went into the hallway, that the violence that occurs there is indicative of her trauma, that the men going in there and shooting and killing and like harming one another is indicative of her own trauma. But there is like huge extensive forums dedicated to the fact that the actual author of this book is the mother.
I can see that. Like, I could definitely see that. It would be hard for me to imagine a woman picturing how her child grew up and making them do so much drugs and have so much sex. Like, I just can't imagine being like, you know what my kid would probably be doing? Screwing Thumper or wanting to screw Thumper and doing hella drugs. Like, that's how I see my child living. Like, I can't see a woman.
He does discuss at one point taking an oiled finger up the booty hole. I don't think his mom would have just been like, you know what? My Johnny.
That would probably happen to my little baby that died. Like, I can't see that, you know.
No. So there's no answers, guys. I would love to tell you succinctly exactly what happens in this book.
You can believe my theory if you want. I'm okay with it.
It's what I believe. What you guys thought about the claw marks that were in Zampano's office, or like by his body? You ever figured out what that was?
No, because they're described as being huge. And there's this mention repeatedly of a minotaur. There's this roaring in this house. And I think the assumption that we're supposed to be led to believe is that this monster is capable of coming out. Like, if you know about this monster, it's one of those like reality shifting things where Johnny feels it breathing down his neck. Johnny feels it stalking him in the darkness, you know? So they discussed that Zampano sealed up his apartment, but like would go out for walks. Like, his locks were not to keep people out. It was to keep what was in.
Yeah, because he went for walks and fed the local cats and everything.
So I have no idea, because there was a physical manifestation, at least, of the.
I have a theory that Zampano was the Minotaur, and so like, as he was dying, you know, he took the Minotaur form and clawed the floor, and then he died.
I mean, he could very easily, as a blind man, could very easily roam the darkness of that void and navigate it more easily than anybody else in there.
Yeah.
Who'd been relying on sight their whole life.
What are you doing? Are you leaving now? Oh, nope. This is okay.
You're not wrong. Honestly, the theorizing and discussion of this book is one of the most fun parts of it, because there's no right or wrong way to read it. There's really no right or wrong way to interpret it. And there is just miles of theory and code breaking and debunking. And like, even this time I found more codes and stuff that I hadn't debunked that I hadn't found in the first reading through like forums. I found like more hidden codes and more hidden meanings and sayings. And
I want to know how he did that in 2 years. Like, how do you come up with all of those things in 2 years? And then write it. And
yeah.
I don't.
This is basically what you have to do.
It's me. And here's the other thing is that these things, like, oh God, it blows my mind. Things in here like actually exist though. So like, Navy is famous for a photo of a Sudanese child who's being stalked by like a vulture, about to die and be like picked clean. Terrifying, right?
And
like
that
horrible.
he won a Pulitzer for it.
He won for. So I go and I'm like, I'll look it up.
Because I was like, that sounds familiar. I feel like I've seen that picture before.
Let's look it up, shall we?
Have.
It's a thing. Like there's actually like a photograph. The actual photographer of that photo, by a different name, and a little bit different of a photo, that like gained so much flack, like a recognition, did win a Pulitzer for it, and then was hounded by people that were like, the 3 minutes that you took to take that picture could have been spent saving that kid's life, but no, you stopped and took a picture. Was hounded so much that he committed suicide. It's mentioned in this book. That person is mentioned in here as inspiration for the picture that Navy took, and that he killed himself. So like that factual stuff is in here. There's also a point in this where Navy is cleaning hair out of Karen's brush. And then there's a footnote about an article that is discussing their relationship. The article doesn't exist, but the magazine does. And in that issue, on that page, is an article about DNA sequencing from hair in like artifacts, like that they found, that they discover. So like, not only do they make footnotes based on like, just to kind of give you something to be like, oh, in this article discussing the relationship, but like the footnote makes sense. Like the fake article,
like I don't have time to go look at all the footnotes like that.
No,
I don't.
Here's the thing. That magazine existed. That issue number existed on that date. That article page number does exist. And then that article on that page is roughly referencing what is happening in the book.
It's relevant,
It's relevant. And that happens for a lot of things. There's 3 pages of like photographers named in this, and they all check out. Like you can look up any of them and they're all actual photographers. And then within their surnames, there's a message spelled out. So he actually ordered all of those artists in a specific way to spell out a message with the first letter of their surnames.
It written in mine.
Oh.
Or I looked it up or something. I think I wrote it.
I wrote it somewhere. What page was it on?
I think that's like part of the book too, is Johnny talks about how, or possibly it was Zampano. I can't tell you which, because their stories kind of blend together a little bit.
Yeah.
They talk about how some people who helped Zampano transcribe the book, or his notes rather, read it and were fine. Others read it and felt like a vague sickness or, a little creep factor. And then there were people like Zampano and Johnny who it basically took over and destroyed their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, like, that's true for anyone who reads the book, which we're reading the book. And so some people can read it and just be like, okay, that was, whatever.
That was cool. That happened. Whatever.
That was
whatever. Or people who hate it. There are people out there who hate this book. They don't understand it. They don't get it, which is a valid opinion.
Yeah.
If I read it just based off of Johnny's perspective, I would be like, why am I here? So I get that.
It's,
and then there are people who have probably spent the last 20 years, are still trying to reread it and figure it out. So, there's varying degrees of obsession.
There's the me and then the normal person.
There's a Julie, and then there's normal people.
I'm telling you.
I think that Julie, compared to some of the people on them
I
forums,
think Julie is like middle of the road.
I'm not forum crazy, but I'm not okay either.
I've done some forum perusing, to try to.
How intense are they?
Some things, but also I just finished it yesterday, so I haven't really had a lot of time to
They're intense. The forums are really, truly intense.
I can't even find it anymore.
I can't either. Oh, here they are. It says, oh, good Lord.
I don't think it says that.
No, it doesn't. It says, a long list of visionaries. Salute. She said, memories mean all, but they are all dead. Who do I wait? No. What? The hell does my writing say? But they are all dead now. Who? You. I wait now only for the wind. That's what it said.
I fear the wind.
I fear the wind. Like, I mean, who knows, right? But this is what it was. It was Kevin Carter's 1994 Pulitzer winning photo of the vulture. And then he killed himself. He won in 94 and then
I
killed
actually did
himself
look
the
up
same
more
year.
information about this picture and about that photographer.
It's a terrifying
That
photo.
baby actually did live.
It lived. The baby lived.
Yeah. And it was on, like, there was a vulture standing next to it because it was about to die, but it pulled through.
Yeah. I did math on how long he fell into the house. Just, in case you were curious. In 5 days, he biked. Well, now, how much did he bike? He biked approximately 1,941 miles in about 5 days.
That's like nearly across the United States, isn't it?
I'm telling you, nothing's normal. Anyway, the answers are there are no answers. I don't.
1,000. How many? 1,291?
Well, I lost the page now. Yeah, sure.
Right around about?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. It was bananas. My annotation.
Bananas.
I literally have annotations just go, oh my fuck.
That's typically how I annotate things too. So
I don't even know. Like, it's just nuts.
So the distance from New York City to Oklahoma City is 1,324 miles. So that's a long way.
Well, but technically, you can drive that far.
He was on a bike going downhill the whole time. It's less impressive when you know that.
I mean, he was on a bike going downhill, and he wasn't actually having to pedal. He was just having to stay awake so he could stay upright because he was traveling like 30 miles an hour on a bike.
Yeah, he was going insane speeds.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, he just had to keep his feet out of the way and maintain balance.
Okay, you sit on a bike from New York City to here, and you tell me...
I don't want to.
I'm good.
So from New York City to where I am is 1,370 miles.
So longer than that, though.
We said that 1,291, right?
1,009 to 27 or something.
Yeah, so it's even further. It's probably nearly across the entire United States.
That's silly. That's just silly.
Which is like a 4 or 5 day drive, and he did it on a bike.
But listen, the stairwell went more than the circumference of the earth. So we've really lost all sense of like, nothing means anything.
But it also only went 10 feet.
Yeah. But also at other times I could drop a light down it and see the bottom. So, somebody asked if it was written in 2000. How did it age?
I actually have a note.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good one. If I can find it again, back when I
believe
was
in you.
In the very beginning, when I was annotating, it was a great one.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing like talking about an article or getting someone's opinion on something, or where's it at, Jessica? Get your life together.
Okay. There is definitely a lot of slut shaming. There's a lot of like villainizing of women who have been abused, and like it's not the best look at women.
Well, it's on page 7, so like it's real early.
Sure
and
is.
It's they talk about like people talking about the Davidson record, like the videotapes, and the Interview magazine quoted Harvey Weinstein saying, "It is what it is," and I wrote, "Well, that didn't age well."
Didn't age well.
I think I put that too.
Yep.
I was like, ooh, yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, not to laugh at like anything that guy did, because
no,
fucking moron.
I literally put, oof, that didn't age well.
Yeah, that didn't age well.
No,
because the way the women are treated in this book go with that so well. It's like this guy knew the future. It was like he knew back then.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling us 20 years ago that this dude was a douche nozzle, and we weren't listening.
No, we were not.
I mean, people have been saying Harry Weinstein was a douche nozzle for years anyway.
Fair.
Karen does shop the like 5-minute clip of this movie around too, to like Anne Rice, Stephen King, to like doctors and scientists and physicists to like get their opinion, to see whether or not it could be made into a movie if there was any interest in it. And so like there is like name dropping in it that's like, he's not the only person that they name drop, but like
Stephen King said it was fucking scary.
Stephen King was like, fuck that.
I'm out.
No, thank you.
But there is also a note where they say, where I think Johnny says that he tried to find like the instances where they apparently, he can't find anything where anyone ever said anything about this book or this movie.
Yeah, like he tries to contact people and they're like, I didn't do anything.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think in his road trip, he goes and tries to find Ash Tree Lane and tries to find the house, and there's nothing. Like he can't find it.
And the thing that I find part of, because as I said, I tried to make Johnny and Chad the same person. They talk about, like what they did with the house after, like the whole ordeal was over. And basically, as you said, like they quarantined it off and didn't do anything with it. I find it interesting that in Johnny's letters or his notes where he's traveling the US, he goes back home. And when he goes back home, like to his original house where, this trauma supposedly happened, the house no longer exists. It's been torn down and there's like a sawmill or something there, which trees. It's a sawmill. So it like kind of adds to that aspect as well of it being like him telling the story of the trauma that happened to him through a ghost story, kind of, which is kind of like that Riley Sager book, Home Before Dark, where you tell something non-supernatural through something supernatural.
Yeah. Listen, you could debate so many different, like everybody's going to come away with something a little bit different, especially if you read just the house story or just the footnotes, or if you go, there are some people, they're monsters that read it linearly and they don't jump to the appendixes and they don't what are words? They don't go back and forth.
I don't know what the real word is. I just prefer to say appendices because it sounds fun.
Appendi.
I don't know.
Anyway, there's 1,000 different ways to read it, and there's 1,000 different ways to interpret it, and there's no right or wrong, which makes it so intriguing. I don't know that I ever want to reread it again, but I probably will.
I would definitely reread it again, but I've only read it the one time, so yeah. But I don't want to do it like I have finished books before and been like, I need to reread this right now, and like within a couple of days, jump back into it. It's definitely one where like I'm gonna let it sit for like at least the remainder of this year and maybe pick it up again next year and actually go through it slowly and take more notes next time.
Yeah, I read it the first time.
Merriam-Webster, appendices is the plural version.
Appendices.
Appendices.
Fuck it. It's appendi. So yeah, I did it 2018, and then it was one of my first reads in 2021. So it's been a little while, and that was the correct amount of time, at least for me. Like I could not have gone into it right away. But it is cool. Do you have something mysterious on page 487? Did you check your book, Jessica? Anybody with a book?
I don't have
go to 487.
Everybody check page 487.
Turn to page 490.
I have a tiny dot that exists here.
And that's like it's a period. Like you have an actual little dotty dot, right?
It's a very cylindrical, perfect dot.
So I have the regular asterisk. I have no dot like Amber does. Nope. I have no dot though on the edge. I do have a little red dot, though, all the way down here.
I got nothing.
No? Alicia has no red dot. It could 100% just be weird printing errors, but it's strange that like that's the only page we've seen. We both have something different, like, and odd on it.
Also strange that it's red because, I mean, there is red in the text in the book, but not
nowhere near it
in that area.
Yeah.
And
and I was highlighting in orange and in green, and I was like, maybe but it's not orange, it's red. I showed it in my blog clear. This is not the best thing. Now, do you have the little black dot next to your asterisk? We're getting a lot of no red dots, which I get.
But does anybody have the same dot on the side of the page
period?
that I do? Because it's not the normal one. It's like over here by the edge.
It's like
I keep
right on the
finding
edge.
like extra weird numbers and shit in here that I didn't know was here before. Like every time we're flipping through it to look for something, I'm like, well, look, there's a weird number on the side there. Where'd that
Do you
come
have
from?
a dot on any other page close by that maybe it was like printed off on mine? I don't know.
And everybody should have a check mark on page 97 because somebody commented in my comments on my vlog. Was it you?
It was me.
Oh. Why did I think it was Cassie?
I don't know.
Did she do it too?
I don't know.
Everybody has the check mark.
Well, in one of Johnny's mother's letters, she says something about putting a small check mark at the bottom of the page or something to let him know that let her know that he had gotten the message she was trying to give him.
Yes.
So then I went back.
Has anybody looked up that thing? It's like a Morse code right here.
Yeah, it's SOS.
It's SOS.
There's a lot of SOS through here.
Yeah. It's the only Morse code I know.
Yeah, there's a large amount of SOSs throughout this book.
Which also it's interesting because they talk about like there's a large amount of the SOS in the book, but they also talk about how when Navidson edited the footage together, he did a bunch of SOSs in the footage as well, like 3 short clips and then 3 long clips and then 3 short clips.
Yeah.
But do your 3 short clips in the beginning or your 3 short dots, are they bigger than your other dots?
Yes.
Well, why though? Like that's
I don't know the answer to that question.
No. From somewhere in the house, rising up like a strange black oil, there comes a faint knocking. Chad and Daisy actually detect it first, but by the time they reach their parents' bedroom, Karen's already up with a light on, listening intently to the new disturbance. It sounds like somebody is rapping their knuckles against the wall. 3 quick knocks, followed by 3 slow knocks, followed by 3 more quick knocks, over and over again. I hate those children.
On page 97, the first 3 dots are thicker. On page 98, the middle ones are thicker. And then on page 101, the last 3 dots are thicker. Like, what the heck?
It's a secondary SOS within the SOS.
Yeah, it's a hidden SOS.
That means there's 4 of them.
Well, this is how I feel about that. It's right here.
Fuck you. It's a big old fuck you. Yeah, I don't know. Temperature in the hallway is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, plus or minus 8. Light is absent. Silence complete, with the exception of a growl. No breezes, no drafts. Compasses don't work. Like, I don't want to.
It's warmer in the tunnel than it is in Ohio, so there's that.
There is that for right now. Like, how hard is it to just leave the house?
Right.
Leave the house. First of all, the minute my book fell off a shelf, I'm out.
Yeah.
So, on page 102, it's not a full SOS. So, a dash dash dot 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 is actually M and then S. Miss, like miss. MS.
Well, 102 and 103 are different too.
Or it could be.
But maybe they're including
the dash dot is G and then dot dot is I. So it could either be GI or MS.
But here's the thing though, there's little tiny dots on the other pages leading up to it, like separating text. So it could be dot, dot, dash, dot, 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 dot. And then there's more dot, dot. Who knows?
But here's the thing. All of the ones before that are all the SOS. They're the full SOS.
They are.
And then all of a sudden that one is just those. So it could either be dash dash, which is an M, and then dot dot dot, which is an S, or it could be a dash dash dot, which is a G, and then a dot dot, which is an I.
Nothing means anything.
It means everything means something. That's the thing. Everything means something.
Everything means too many things. I mean, in the writing world, they talk about how like all of your words should be important and should have meaning. And this guy took it to a whole other level.
Yeah. So it looks like we're the only ones with weird books.
Fun. There are other people in the forums, but
Faith, I looked at other pages for weirdnesses, but I didn't see anything. And honestly, there's so many weird things in the book that like I don't even know how to differentiate something weird or not weird.
Exactly.
It gets interesting after page 100 for sure. But not far after page 100. I want to say like when the house starts getting really interesting is when I got really into it. So right
around 100, because like you start to get the weird pages after that, and
no,
someone's upset with you, Jessica.
That's not nice.
Puppies.
Puppies.
They're like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
But just barely after that. But we will most likely start to wrappeth uppeth.
So does anybody else have any thoughts you want to ask or talk about? Any theories or
any takeaways, any theories, any questions, anything you're unsure? I mean, I can't answer everything, but I can try.
If you haven't read it, does this make you want to read it more or less? If you have read it, does all this make you want to reread it?
Ooh. If you're interested in the forum, I do have that linked in my vlog from yesterday, so you can check that out there, or just look up House of Leaves forum. You'll come to it.
Yeah, Alicia, the first 80 pages are hard to get through.
Yeah.
But once you do, it gets better. And then you start to appreciate the first 80 pages as you get further into it, just because you realize how much like setup was there.
Yeah.
I took I took 3 days to read this book because I waited until the last minute to do it.
But you got it done.
Like, the first day I read 100 pages, and then the subsequent 2 days following I read 300 each day. So
yeah, the first 100 is the hardest part to get through.
It really is the harder part to get through. And like last night, I think I was done around the first night 2. I read until 2 a.m. because, well, I fell asleep while I was reading because I do that. I fall asleep at this desk a lot. I sleep here way more than I should. And so I slept for like 2 hours just with like my head on the desk.
Oh my gosh.
And so then I was plenty awake enough to continue reading until 2 a.m.
Was that just because you like desperately wanted to get it done before the show, or were you just like interested in it?
Both. I was interested in the house story, not so much in Johnny's story. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know what was happening in the house story.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a lot of people's first read, was just the house story was so interesting. Like you just really want to get through the house, and you're like, Johnny, shut up and let me read about the house.
Yeah.
But then like the second time, you really start to realize how much Johnny, like how important he is. And Latrice, I agree. Go to the forum. Don't decode it yourself. It saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because we spent a lot of time decoding, and then we would go to the website and it would just be right there written out for us. So we were like, son of a bitch. The book was a mind fuck. I agree.
For sure, the first time I spent a lot of time decoding on my own, but the second time around, I'd be like, "This is strange. Like, this is weird. This is suspicious."
Let's look it up.
Yeah, I was like, "Why is he including 3 pages of like photographers' names?" So I would like go to the forum and be like, "Mark Z Danielewski, page da da da," and they'd be like, "There really is no real reason, but there is this message spelled out in it." And I was like, "Well, okay." Like,
and also, I did have crazy dreams as well. I had
weird
dreams.
I slept like a baby
at your desk.
at my desk.
To be fair, vivid dreams.
To be fair, I'm also medicated for anxiety and depression, so like I don't really have bad dreams anymore. I used to have night terrors really bad, so I am medicated for that. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that I don't have nightmares about it.
Yeah,
I slept peacefully.
Oh my gosh, if I had had an issue, if I had had one of my sleep paralysis moments after, I would...
Oh, fuck no.
I would have 10 out of 10 pissed the bed. I would have freaked out. Like, I would have lost it.
No way.
There's no way.
I've never had night terrors, and I've never had the... What'd you call it? The sleep paralysis? I've never had
horrific.
That.
No, I'm good. Like, the night terrors are bad enough. I don't want to deal with no fucking sleep paralysis. I'm good. I'm the worst.
It's the worst thing ever. But if it had happened during this, like,
yeah. And I think my brother has them because he mentioned something about waking up and like can't move and being paralyzed. And I'm like, but do you see anything in the room? Because a lot of people have hallucinations when that happens. Mm-hmm. He was like, no, I just can't move for a few minutes. And I'm like, no, you have like mild sleep paralysis.
But does he like wake up over and over again?
He wakes up a lot at night. Yeah.
No. But I mean, like, so when I have it, I think I'm awake and then the thing is still there. And then I lose my shit. And then I realize, oh, I'm still sleeping. And then I like wake up and then I'm like, fuck, it's still there. And then I'm like, oh my God,
he's not having a hallucination. So,
oh my God, it's the worst. I get stuck in a loop and it's horrific. So like if I had that during this, awful. I didn't have any of that. I did have just like a lot more like vivid, like kind of wild, like off the wall kind of stuff. But I didn't have anything like specifically related to the book. I just had like weirder dreams in general.
If there was like a real monster described in the book, I probably would have had more issues. Because I tend to, like in my night terrors, will dream about, like there's always like some kind of like big bad, some big monster, but no matter what you do, you can't kill, like no matter how many times you kill them, you can't kill them. And like in my dream, I know I'm asleep, but I can't make myself wake up either. I have on many occasions, I tend to wake up in different rooms of the house than what I fell asleep in, either crying or screaming at the top of my lungs. Don't like, you want to live with me?
Pre-medication or on it's still on medication?
Pre-medication.
Oh my God. Thank God you're on medication. I would lose it.
I do still wake up in different rooms sometimes, but I've never been, I did that when I was a kid. Like I've never been like a really heavy sleeper. And I think I wake up and move and just don't remember moving. But I will often wake up like, I know I went to bed in the bed, but I woke up on the couch. How did I get here?
It's bed adjacent.
My ex-stepbrother, he sleptwalked, and he would sleepwalk and he would talk to me, and I would think that he was awake, and then the next morning he wouldn't remember any of it, and I finally started to understand the signs of, oh, he's not actually, like he's asleep. But I used to wake up and he would be in the living room, like getting into a fight with the wall and like just going at it like they're in a fist fight. And I'd just be like, wake up.
Oh, please don't. Please
Bandersnatch.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that.
Has a maze and a minotaur. Somebody I think mentioned that in my comments today too. Or yesterday. I don't want to watch this movie. I don't think I want to do it.
It's like a choose your own adventure like show, right? On Netflix.
That's what they said.
Isn't it a part of Black Mirror or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said because of how much you like this, it's a Black Mirror episode, I believe. Choose your own adventure.
Like, I think it's a Black Mirror, like, season. Like, it's a choose your own adventure.
Oh, it's a whole season? I just thought it was an episode.
I could be wrong, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I've never watched Black Mirror because that freaks me out.
Well, because they did Black Mirror, and then like there's a second season of Black Mirror that was maybe.
I thought it was like American Horror Story, where like every season is a different
thing.
That's what I thought. I don't know. But Black Mirror freaks me out. I don't want to see anything in a mirror in a TV or in a TV that's gone black. I don't want to see. I've seen.
I don't think that's what Black Mirror is, though.
Yeah, it's like you see things in, like when like you see things. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, that's what a Black Mirror is.
Yeah, but not what the show is, Amber.
I'm pretty sure that's a part of it.
I think it's a different
so.
show, but I can't think of what it is what we're thinking about.
Yeah.
But I don't watch television, so I don't know.
Oh, it can be the length of a movie depending on what path you take. Oh, poor babies. Yeah, so I, like, again, when I read, I don't picture things in my head. So, like, if I were to watch that, I would be picturing it, and I don't want to picture it. I don't want it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna take one of these and
go
to bed.
Yeah. Thank you for joining, everybody. I knew it was going to be a lower attended live stream just because not everybody wants to be spoiled and not everybody has read the book, but I will have this archived. So if anybody reads it later, I know a lot of people are reading it in March with Kayla. I've been getting lots of comments. So if you are going to read it later and you want to come back and you want to discuss something in the comments, either on my vlog or on this, and just kind of share your own theories, thoughts, experiences, that would be awesome. It's one of those books where I always kind of want to talk about it and theorize about it. It just interests me. I like it. So thank you for listening, for joining. Jessica, thank you for joining. I'm proud of you for reading it.
Having me and my 23 dogs.
Listen, you got 23 dogs, you're allowed some yappins.
There's only 14, but it feels like 23.
Oh, well. I mean, after 14, does it really matter? Or after 13, does it really matter? Like, it's all... No.
After 4, it doesn't matter with dogs. It's like children.
Yeah. You're already outnumbered, so it's just kind of like, well, okay. All right, friends. Thank you for joining. Any last words, ladies? No. All right. Well, then enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you back here if you are interested in productivity sprints on Sunday night, 8 o'clock, my time. Do you have any live sprints before then, Jessica?
Nope.
Okie dokie. Well, then we will see you back here Sunday night, 8 p.m. for some productivity sprints before the week starts. But for now, that's going to be everything. Thanks for chatting about House of Leaves with us. Yay.
All right.
Good night.